to New York 3 months after the towers fell down. September the 11th, 2001 was the attack on that powerful symbol of the economic and financial capital of the world. And I arrived there 3 months to the day after that. And it's been an interesting time. I came to Rome to meet with Father General and the Council on my way to New York to ask them to give me directions as to how I should work and what I should concentrate on. And they said, they were very supportive, very encouraging. They said, well, why don't you go and find out what's going on, and gradually we'll sort it out, we'll work out. We'll make a path by walking. And in a way, that's what we tried to do. And it took time. There were 2 stages. The first was to be able to work at all, we had to have some sort of recognition. And the first level was association through the Department of Public Information. And in the report, I there state that association through the DPI is a passive relationship, which means that we can be present within the UN, we can use their information sources, and we are encouraged to share that with our membership. But it's a passive relationship, so we receive in order to share it with our own. To actually be effective, the next step was to gain an active relationship with the United Nations. Now that took quite a while, and in fact it was only last year, in the middle of last year, that we finally were given what is called consultative status with the Economic and Social Council, which simply means that as a recognised group called Passionists International, we are now entitled, by right, we can attend the United Nations, and we can engage actively with the member states of the United Nations. And so it's possible, it's not only possible, but it's expected that we will add some value to the work of the United Nations. So we're not expected to be there simply as takers, receiving and running away and saying thank you very much. But we're expected to bring something out of our own experience, out of our own expertise, that can enrich the life of these. So we live in an ever more interconnected world. And progress in one area is dependent on progress in the other. As Kofi Annan, the previous Secretary General of the UN, used to say, there can be no development without peace and security. There can be no true peace and security if we don't have development, and neither of them can survive unless there's a basic respect for the human rights of everyone. So that leads us to the next one, that basically the approach is a 3-legged stool. So we've got the African stool here, which is crafted from one single tree. So it's a whole which shows itself in 3 different ways. Development, which is called freedom from want, security, freedom from fear, and human rights, which is the freedom to live in dignity. And we've got to work at all 3 of those together. And so we live in not only an interconnected but a globalized world. I've heard the word used negatively since I've been here. It's got some possibilities of being positive, but it takes a lot of work to achieve that. John Paul II used to speak of the need for a globalization of solidarity. We need to put the 2 words together. Globalization on its own is not necessarily a good thing. As Kofi Annan said, globalization is not a tide that lifts all boats. And as we can see here, that we've got the reality of the free flow of money, of information, of goods, of products, but there is no free flow of people or of labour. And globalisation acts unequally and very definitely in favour of the rich at the expense of those who are forced to live in poverty. Incidentally, that's one of the things in working with other religions at the UN. We don't talk about the poor when we deal with governments, because we've come to the decision that to speak of the poor is to demean people. Rather, we speak of people who are forced to live in poverty, because to speak of the poor is often to treat them as problems, when in fact people who are forced to live in poverty show enormous capacity for creativity. It takes an awful lot of creativity just to stay alive if you don't know where the next meal's coming from for you or your family. Poverty is about a lack of resources, or lack of access to resources. So therefore, a long way around to the question, why are we at the UN? Well, our constitutions give us a nudge in that direction. As Constitution 65 says, whose passion and death are no mere historical events, they're ever-present realities to people of today, crucified as they are by injustice, a lack of deep respect for human life, and a hungry yearning for peace, truth, and the fullness of human existence. And we didn't write that just yesterday or last year, but it's retained its vigour, and it becomes even truer and when we look at the world in the 21st century.